Okay, class. Today we're going to continue with Chapter 2, the Management Applications in Sport. And in getting started, we're going to focus on POLE, planning, organizing, leading, and evaluating. And you've read this in your chapter. We're just going to go through some examples here and how you can apply these principles, sport manager. All right, so let's paint the picture of a sport management scenario. So your given job title is the event coordinator of the Charlotte Bobcats. Your task is to plan a 3-on-3 basketball youth tournament. All right, so with this, we're going to go through the POLE process: planning this event, organizing this event, leading this event, and then on the backside, how you evaluate this event. All right, so let's start with planning. You can see in your slide, defining organizational goals and determining the appropriate means by which to achieve these desired goals. All right, so at this point, your task is the 3-on-3 basketball tournament. All right, so you're in the planning phase. Now you're determining your goals and your objectives for this particular event. Is your goal to raise money? Is it to raise awareness? Whichever goal you choose, say it's to a fundraiser for a local nonprofit charity, then your objectives would be the ways in which you go about reaching those goals. Make sure you understand that these plans may change and evolve depending on other things outside of this particular event. All right. So the planning phase is your initial brainstorming, is a great way to think about this phase in your management principles. All right, so then you move on to organizing. Here's where you're going to put your plans into action. Right now, you have a solid plan for your 3-on-3 basketball tournament. You know the location. You know how many courts you're going to be using. You know the cost. You've done all of the planning for this event. Now you need to start organizing this event, bringing all of these ideas together. This is the action plan. You need to, as a manager, be determining what types of jobs need to be performed, and most importantly, who's going to be responsible for doing these jobs. So this includes the development of an organizational chart, and on the next slide I'll show you an example of an organizational chart. The developments of position descriptions. These are your job descriptions. Not only the title of the position, but what are the responsibilities? What are their qualifications? These position qualifications will be embedded in these position descriptions or these job descriptions. Those are very important as far as organizing your event. So now, who's going to be responsible for these positions? You have to find the right people if you want to have a successful event. You're going to be using most likely a lot of volunteers if we're going back to the 3-on-3 basketball tournament. But you still need for those volunteers to be the right people, again, in order for your event to be successful. And this involves tactics, motivating strategies. Maybe they get a free t-shirt. Maybe you offer your volunteers a free lunch if they're going to be working hours, longer hours. Those are things that you'll decide. Some in the planning phase, but then in the organizing and staffing comes into the organizing phase as well. As an event coordinator, it's very important to understand this step. Again, that you have to have the right people for the job in order to have a successful event. All right, so now if you'll see on this slide an example of an organizational chart, we're going to kind of step away from the event coordinator position right now and look at this from an athletic director, maybe a collegiate athletic director position. And you can see, starting on the left, that you have just below the athletic director, you have the associate AD and several associate or senior associate levels. And then you can keep going on down. You see the assistant athletic director of marketing, of fundraising. All right, so this is just a chain of command. So this is who you would answer to. So if you're the assistant athletic director of fundraising, then as far as the chain of command goes, you're going to be your immediate supervisor is going to be the associate AD of external affairs per this example. All right, so as long as you have a basic understanding of what an organizational chart is. Let's move along to the leading function when you're looking at sport management. This is the action part of the management process. This is where it gets real. This is the fun part. You as a leader have to be able to delegate. You have to let go. That's all delegation is letting it go. Assigning responsibility and accountability to certain employees and in some cases volunteers. So if we're looking at back to our event coordinator position, if you're the day of the event, you're the lead, you have to delegate. You can't be at all 4 basketball courts. You can't be over the concessions. You can't be over the apparel, merchandise, things of that nature. You have to delegate and have lead employees or volunteers overseeing these different areas so that then you can be a true manager. You'll be in constant communication with these volunteers and employees, but you're not overseeing every single aspect of this event. You're delegating. You as a manager, and that's going to free you up to manage any differences or change that may take place in an organization. And when we go back to our example of the 3-on-3 basketball tournament, what happens if it starts raining, or bad weather, dangerous weather? What's your plan? You have to have that. You have to know what that policy or procedure is going to be, how to communicate that to all of the leaders that you've delegated responsibility to. So there are things that are going to arise that you as a manager are going to have to take on and make those decisions. And they're not always easy decisions. As you can see in the next bullet, some of the issues that you're going to have to combat are conflicts, work problems, communication difficulties. It's on you to stimulate creativity and to motivate your employees. So if you're running the concession stand or if you're officiating these basketball games, that doesn't free you up to handle these issues. That's why it's important that you do delegate. The event coordinator is responsible, if we're talking about our event, our basketball 3-on-3 tournament, you're responsible for the day of the event, the timeline, the script. And actually, let me skip on to the next slide. Here's a partial script. This is what we're talking about. A minute by minute time frame, timeline of what's going to happen, when it's going to happen, where people need to be. And the copies of these scripts need to be dispersed to all employees and volunteers the morning of the event or the last meeting before the event occurs. These are very important to the event's success. And then what is evaluating? Right. So after your event, how are you going to measure and ensure progress toward your objectives, the objectives that you set forth when you were planning the event? How did you meet those objectives? Did you or did you not? What was the problem? All right, so we have some examples on how you evaluate. And you can read those in the slide, but if we skip on down to the 3-on-3 tournament, number 1, collect demographic data. This is going to be collected typically during your registration period, whenever you're gathering all of those materials. Make sure that you include their email on that form. Right? You want to have a way to reach back out to them, not only to market for upcoming events that you may have, but to send out surveys. Number 2, have surveys on site for the players, the parents, the officials, and even the volunteers to complete while they're there. And then 3rd, after the event, when people have had time to go home and think through their overall experience, then you email out some surveys and gain very valuable data at that point. All right, so to summarize this chapter, and not the chapter as a whole, but to summarize poll, planning, organizing, leading, and evaluating. These are primary functions of a sport manager. These are things, whether you're event coordinator, athletic director, facility manager, that you're going to have to understand. Can be used in all situations, not just athletic events like we just spoke about. So see if you can apply poll. If you're a sport marketer, creating a new marketing plan for ETSU's new football program. Would you need to plan? Would you need to organize this marketing plan? Would you need to have goals and objectives? Would you need to have possible job descriptions, things of that nature? Would you need to delegate in this process? How would you lead this type of campaign? And then, are you going to evaluate a process? And the answer is yes. So poll can be used in many different situations. Okay, I hope you enjoyed that, and we will start with Chapter 3 next. Will be our next chapter, and that's sport marketing.